Welcome to B1 Ministries, a podcast for the outcast. Spiritual conversations for everyday people. Come on. Be one with your universe. Be one with love for all humanity. Be one. Spiritual conversations for everyday people. Be one with love for all humanity.
All right. So here we are in Tijuana, Mexico, 2018, and we are here with the Ministry Doxa, Dads, and Emerald City Bible Fellowship, and I have a dear friend here. B1Love, B1 Ministries. Just doing another podcast, VCast, whatever you call this stuff, shedding another light on love from whatever angles that we can come up with. And my dear friend Brian, his dad is the reason that this Mexico trip even exists, as well as probably over 100 small groups in Washington that have been going on, if I'm not mistaken, since the 70s.
It started in the 70s, officially incorporated in I think 1980. But the small group started in the 70s.
Yeah, and so I just thought it would be amazing to share, especially in this context of being here with your son, when 10 years ago, literally to this week, you were here with your dad, and may he rest in peace. I just know, as a son, that's got to be just kind of amazing, to know that his legacy is living on, and his life was the greatest representation of love that I have ever seen in any one man. I mean, he was just such a stand-up guy, and really, in my personal life, your dad was the kind of a pinnacle of me getting to know Jesus in a way that I had never imagined or known I could have a relationship with the universe, with God, with just nature, and doing the right thing just because it was the right thing. And the biggest thing I think I learned from your dad was leaning into adversity opposed to leaning away. And that's become a lifestyle for me. And it takes a lot of love to do that, especially in tight situations with family and friends. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a opportunity to share from your perspective your take on love and how you see the world, especially growing up with your dad. I mean, this has to be pretty cool, man.
Well, I was really blessed to grow up in a home where I had a father and figure in my presence, and he was by far the biggest influencer in my life and represented love in a way that I think most people might be surprised by, because he didn't really describe love. He showed love in everything he did. And one of the things that I most remember about him is he took everybody that he met at face value and validated them and heard their story and didn't have any preconceived notions about anyone, regardless of where they came from. And he really was a model for me as far as showing me how to love the world, especially people who don't look like me. And I am grateful, very grateful for that fact. And I know that that's a unique situation that I grew up in, with an actual mentor for me. And then to come here in this Mexico trip and hear these stories of all these different men from different backgrounds who were also influenced by him, that really touched me. It was really powerful. And now I'm here with my son 10 years later, as Will said, and it just feels like I'm given that opportunity, like the baton has been passed on to me to kind of teach my son about love and what that means. And love is such a big, big word. I mean, it can go in so many different directions. But it's also a simple word. It's really what I consider something. Love is unconditional, and we learn that from Christ, and that's what we're supposed to do and model to people, not just people that are close to us, but to everybody in the world, people, including people that are down here in Mexcio who we've never met before. So I think love is contagious. I really do. I think once you lean into love, someone else on the other side is going to lean in to love as well. So.
And so for you watching your father, I mean, I'm sure that everything wasn't, balloons and rainbows the whole way through. His ministry is just not like that. And just in either your personal life or watching your dad, like, what was the way he would deal with leaning into love where a person's not reciprocating that? Like, they're kind of pushing back for whatever the reasons are. It could be all kinds of stuff in America, especially because we have all these different things that bind us up from like reaching back in. And so how did that, like, because one of the things about why I do this is just kind of trying to figure out ways to not teach, but experience practical application of love. So you got a little something in your tool belt when things come up, like, especially with family and friends and sensitive situations. How did you think that your dad dealt with that, or how did you deal with that on a regular basis?
Well, I think loving isn't always perfect. It's not something that, like you said, it's all rainbows. One of the keys that I have learned or taken away from my dad is showing up and being consistent and continuing to lean, even when it's not pretty, even when it's a messy situation, to not give up on love. It's so easy to say, forget this person or forget that person, I'm moving on. And you miss potentially a lot of someone's story if you take that shut-off approach. My dad heard everyone's story, and I really want to take that to heart and say, okay, I don't agree with this person, or I don't agree with this particular position of this person, or there's something that really bugs me about what my wife is doing or whatever. I really need to take an extra step to really hear that person and to listen to them and to understand where they're coming from their perspective. And if there is a break somehow, keep coming back, and don't get distracted by something out there that may seem better or whatever. Just stay focused. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a reason for the way that they're behaving. And sometimes I think we're too quick to dismiss people and say, that's not, that person isn't for me. I'm not going to pursue that relationship or whatever. So I think the practical tool to your question is consistency and showing up and not giving up on love.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because in the context of a relationship, especially marriage, I heard a guy say one time, he says, people say grass is always greener on the other side, and people tend to look to that other grass that's greener, and he posed the question, have you watered your lawn? And that love, like, it'd be different if you watered your lawn, it might be green, right? You keep looking over here, but you're just trying to push out water. And as a man, or a husband, father, like, we have a pretty heavy cross to bear sometimes in some of those sticky situations. And, that leads me to my next question. So, like, one of the things that I've noticed in ministry, even in my own personal life, when it comes to marriage, especially ministry marriage, watching Judy, your mom, like, be partnered with your father and knowing that it's not always going to be convenient in what we do. From your perspective, how can you describe how your mom leaned into loving your father, being so busy, I mean, there's so many people tugging at your dad, and I'm definitely, I feel that, and I sometimes feel bad for my wife, because it's like, yeah, honey, I gotta go do this. And, like, how did she, you as a son watching your mom, kind of lean into your father's life, and likewise, how did she love him through that without cracking up?
Well, ministry is hard, like you said, and there's a lot of demands on people that are in the ministry. And I think that my mom and dad really saw it as a partnership. They did it together. It wasn't my dad's thing and my mom supporting my dad's thing.
Right.
It was really a partnership on how they did it, and they represented a very strong marriage throughout the entire process. And there was, I'm sure, times when my mom was frustrated that he wasn't home for a baseball game or whatever if he was out. But she, I think, understood the big picture and understood that there are some sacrifices here and there when you're ministering people, but there's also a balance, and I think that she understood the work that my dad was doing was very, very important, and it also was really important for our family to witness what my dad was doing with his ministry. And I just think that there wasn't this push-pull relationship. It was really a symbiotic thing that they kind of worked together. And there were times, I'm sure, I probably didn't witness a lot of times where she was frustrated if he didn't do this or that because he was busy doing other things. But I always saw the grace in her. I always saw her leaning into the positive of what he was doing and not fighting it.
Right.
So,
and you described yesterday a kind of a picture of what that looks like.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So there's this image in a marriage context of a husband and a wife that are focusing on God. And so God is up here, and think of a pyramid. God is at the top of the pyramid. I mean, you're trying to grow closer to your spouse, and you're focusing on God at the same time. So as you're focusing on God, you're getting closer to your spouse. So I think that common faith and understanding of the real goal in your life is to focus on God. I think draws them closer to each other. And part of focusing on God is really sharing the word with others and sharing your life with others. And that was a big part of my dad's life.
Right. It's kind of crazy because my wife is definitely my partner, and it's the first time I've ever kind of been in a relationship that is that way. You know what I mean? And it's different because it's not a long ranger deal, and I feel completely supported. Even when she's like irritated about like, oh my God, you gotta do this thing on time, at our time, but never like hateful about it, and just more like, well, I guess this is our life, right? But I love her for that because I need, someone that supports my loving relationship to God, because I don't know how to say no to certain things, but she does help me with boundaries. What's your mom now?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's healthy for someone to check on, to have
check
to check on,
balance.
check and balance. And absolutely. I think that as much as my mom was supporting my dad was supporting my mom, and they would check and balance each other. It was this kind of, imagine kind of a boat floating. They would just kind of keep it going forward. But there wasn't too much lean on one side, or else it could potentially tip over. So I think that that respect that my dad had for my mom, and conversely, my mom for my dad, really kind of kept that boat going forward. Yeah. As opposed to, I know that there's cases in ministry where there's this domineering, where everything is all about how and I think the boat can tip, and that can cause problems. And I really think that they kept things balanced by really honoring and respecting each other, and giving my dad gave my mom room to do things that were ministry as well, but also other things that she was passionate about. She was passionate about art, and she was passionate about travel and gardening and all these other things that she was. And they kind of, it's funny, they had their different roles in the family. My dad even cooking, my dad would always make the salad. My mom would always do the main course or whatever. My dad would always clean. He wasn't he obviously had traditional outlook and values on life, but he's also, I think, kind of progressive in the way that he really respected his other half, and he shared the chores. He did all the things that traditionally may not have been the man's role, and I think that was honoring to my mom.
Yeah. And it's funny because I try to do the same thing because I know that was modeled for me because of your dad, and I had never saw that before, by the way. Because I come from a background of, the woman is just, you have nothing to say, and what I say goes, and blah, blah, and just watching your father model that for me, I'm quick to, wash dishes or even cook or whatever, and just try to lean in, and I'm not perfect at it, but I just know that it's both of our responsibilities, and so that kind of, brings me to my next question, because if I'm not mistaken, the greeting cards and all that stuff is kind of your mom's thing. Yeah. And so even though he was heavy in ministry, she had her own thing.
Exactly.
And I think that it's important to support that. Even like my wife, she's, she is a powerhouse when it comes to what she does. And some of it's really time consuming because she's an auditor, right? And to give her that space to grow and be who she is, and that's kind of her ministry, so to speak. And I know it's near and dear to her heart to be able to help young women that may be single parents or whatever have a career that actually pays decently, that you can work from home. And these are important elements. And so I've learned, even, from watching your dad, you would want your wife to have her own thing. Like, some people don't want that. They want the woman to sit at home and they would be ready when I get there and so for you, being in a position to work for the company, and tell us a little bit about the context of love because I know that became a family. How many employees were there at one point?
About 55.
Yeah, so it's a lot of relationships to manage, and obviously a lot of love. So just tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
One thing I wanted to also point out about my dad is I really feel like he kind of checked his ego at the door, no matter what he did. Yeah. And honestly, my dad, when he was in the ministry, he didn't make very much money. And my mom's business that she started, it was a little greeting card business that grew into other things, a gift and stationery business. But she was the breadwinner of the family, and sometimes that can be kind of hurtful to a man's ego.
Well, I just kept. Yeah. My wife makes more money than me. She carries me quite a bit too. So, and I have no people.
But he didn't fight that. He supported it. We would go to trade shows or whatever in New York. He would be on the ground building displays and doing everything to support her. Right. And so again, it was this symbiotic kind of balance that they had. And the business that she started was really a kind of a sub ministry, if you will. I mean, she really did start it out as a way to employ single moms.
Same concept,
really. Which was pretty cool, and it was a ministry in its own right. And we always felt I ended up buying the business from my mom in the '90s. But we always felt that giving someone a job and giving them dignity was a way of being, showing love. And I mean, it was a ministry in its own. Right. And it was a real outlet for her, just artistically and also in the community, and building these relationships with all these different walks of life and all these different cultures and ethnicities. And we were involved in sponsoring a recent immigrant from the whole family, actually, from Cambodia, to get them in to the country, and they wouldn't have been able to get into the country if they didn't have a job, and we had to kind of create a job for them, which I thought was just really cool. And I saw that as a ministry, and they would pray with us in the morning and before we started the day, and it was just wow. It was really cool. So my mom had her own ministry as well.
And I think
my dad was doing his ministry,
right?
And there was
just to be holistically healthy. I think that's important to not lord over our mates and try to dictate everything we do, but give them the flexibility to dream and reach powerful creatures, they reach higher than you did financially sometimes. Maybe not so much the day-to-day nuts and boltsy stuff, but when it comes to sustaining a family, sustaining community, I think women are a little better at it than us, so to speak. I think that's cool that I didn't know that your mom's intent was to help.
I mean, it was also, she had an entrepreneurial spirit about herself, and she liked the idea of starting a business and creating a business and all that, but there was always this, like, I want to help people component to it, and carried through to the, 25 years later till we ended up selling the business.
Wow.
So, it was very, very cool.
So I imagine there were some challenges along the way with employees and this and that.
Oh man, there's all, and that kind of leads me to my next thing about love is love is messy, and it's sometimes it's not fun, and it's sometimes you just want to, it's just, there's just so many relationship things where there's an opportunity for things to fracture, and how you deal with that is really where love really starts. It's all fun, and when everything's perfect, it's easy to love. But when it's hard to love, that's what I think God really wants us to do, is to lean in and love when it's hard to love. When there's a messy situation, or even if you've got a sick spouse or a sick parent or whatever, where you just kind of don't feel like dealing with the messiness of it all, but to just show up and show that love is just. And also, love is reciprocal. I mean, to receive love sometimes men are, I mean, when I had cancer 3 years ago, and I was always kind of like the one that was the duty person that would do the giving, and I didn't need anyone's help. That was somebody, I didn't need to receive it. I can do it. I'm on my own. I'm good. I can handle it all. But when you're in a vulnerable situation, to receive love is a real important part of the process.
Right.
To say, to be on the receiving end of love is something that was kind of new for me when I got sick. I was always on the as far as like the duty part of it. So obviously I received love in all sorts of different ways, but the stuff where people are taking care of you physically was a new thing for me. So.
Person I can relate to, because I mean the Jesus story is awesome, but I wasn't there, and I always kid around and say, your dad was the closest thing to Jesus in skin I ever have been in a relationship with, and still there's so many echoes of his voice in my heart as I go through my days, my time, my challenges, and it's kind of weird because it's almost like he's right there. And so, almost like Jesus, not saying your dad's Jesus, but there's this livingness of his life and Jesus' life that echoes in my core of my life. And so, to me, your father's so alive, more than ever now. I mean, he's bigger than he was when he was here, because he was just a physical being, but now it's like there's this spirit that is just hovering over all these beautiful things, and I think the biggest thing that I got, and I can just share this with you, that he made me want to be able to leave behind a legacy, that when people mention my name when I pass someday, that that guy loved well, and I think that changed how I approach my days. Because it's important every little moment that you get to share with someone or be with someone in their stuff, and I really feel now I'm secure that if I literally passed away today, just random or whatever, I think I did okay to this point, and I can see your dad doing the whole shoulder thing, my faithful servant, it's like, I don't know. That changed my perception of my responsibility to the universe, God, and just ministry itself. So.
Yeah, that's I just coming down here. It just feels. It just feels like he's here, or is here, I guess.
Yeah,
and it's so. Again, I said this before, but it's just so rewarding to hear these stories of people, how he impacted people's lives, and it makes me want to have that legacy too.
Yeah, and as you said, I didn't know your dad. You didn't have to spend all that personal quality time with me, and how did he even do that with so many different people? I mean, there's so many people that remember so many personal onesie moments that your dad was intentional and he took that moment. And I kind of want to live my life like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he was a model. He's a model for all of us, no matter who you are. I think he really did live a good life, and he showed us how to die well too. And I learned a lot from him going through the process where he knew he was going to die, and that faithfulness was just it was as strong as ever. So that was very cool.
All right, Brian, man, thank you so much. So B1Love, B1 Ministries, we're just doing what we do. This is a little impromptu on the phone, but you know what? You know, this is what we do. And so we just want to thank Brian and just, man.
Thanks, Will. Will's doing some good stuff, man.
You know, I don't know, I'm just feeling like I'm doing what's instructed to my heart. So anyway, we're out. Have a great day. Spiritual conversations for everyday.
Welcome to B1 Ministries, a podcast for the outcast. Spiritual conversations for everyday people. Come on. B1 with your universe. B1 with love. For all humanity. B1. Spiritual conversations for everyday people. B1 with love for all humanity.